Lake Mead is the largest body of water in the Mojave Wasteland and the source of the fresh water that the NCR pumps into New Vegas and the surrounding area. Even though radiation is still a problem in many areas of the wasteland, Lake Mead is not irradiated. It is also host to a number of interesting marked locations, and we will explore them today. We'll start by traveling to Ranger Station Alpha. We find the lake by turning east and traveling down the hill. The closest location to us is a dock to the southeast. This is Boulder Beach Campground, and when we arrive, it is infested with lake lurks. Heading down to the docks, we see a number of pre-war boats that are rusted through and sunken to the lakebed. Exploring their carcasses reveals nothing interesting. To find the campsite, we travel from the docks southwest up the hill. On the way, we pass by a large rock with graffiti on it. "The sun is killing me." This is a hollowed-out rock where we have a chance to find some goodies, this time just some scrap and some minor ammunition. Heading up the hill, we arrive at the campsite. We find plates, bottles, tin cans, and books that have been scattered around the campsite for 200 years. The campsite continues west up the hill. Here we find a caravan, and inside, Ranger Lineholm, sleeping on a mattress.
Did you need something else?
We remember talking with Ranger Lineholm when I did my videos on Camp Forlorn Hope. She's not part of this campsite. Instead, she's part of the nearby ranger station, but because this campsite is so close, sometimes her sandboxing will take her here to sleep. There's not much else to this campsite. We do find a campfire on the southeastern corner of the campsite for those who are into survival, but that's about it. So we'll head back to the lake. Heading northeast down the hill, we pass by the pre-war parking lot. Based on all the parked cars, I think we can assume that people were having a lovely Saturday morning picnic the day the bombs dropped. Now to explore the lake. Well, let's track down the marked locations near to the lake in a clockwise fashion. So, following the road from the campsite to the northwest, we pass by the ranger station to the left, and we find more lake lurks to the north.
Someone's looking to catch that ship.
Just as we're about to round a bend to the north, our Pip-Boy picks up a location up the hill to the west. Heading up the hill, we see red marks on our Pip-Boy compass. These are more lake lurks hiding amongst the rocks. At the top of the hill, we find another campsite. We pass by the pre-war parking lot, which isn't level at all. I'm thinking some sort of mudslide must have occurred for these cars to be down here. I doubt this is where their owners parked them. We do see sand or smoke off in the distance, and creeping closer, we find the Mountain Shadows Campground. We don't find any lit fires, so I'm thinking this is likely sand that has been blown from the campsite. Much like the last one, we find a lot of ruined pre-war vehicles. And to the left, we find our first human remains. Bleached bones, with clothing still clinging to them. There's a suitcase here, but not much inside. Another skeleton by a campfire that we can light if we want to. And on the picnic table here, we find a bottle cap on a tin plate. Let's get rid of this plate. It's a Sunset Sarsaparilla bottle cap, and there's another nearby. In the middle of the table, we find a Sunset Sarsaparilla star bottle cap. I believe that's the great prize for inspecting this campground. There is another table to the north, and here we find a copy of Today's Physician. We find some cardboard on the ground. We can use this as makeshift bedding if we want. Nearby is a ruined caravan with nothing in it, but here we find a rather jumpy car. Not exactly sure what's going on here, but this car still has a spring in its step. With the campsite explored, we can head back towards the lake. And it's here where Lake Mead converges with Lake Las Vegas. Lake Las Vegas is much shallower than Lake Mead and much smaller. We see Camp Golf off to the north-northeast and NCR soldiers training. If we hop into Lake Las Vegas, we find a bunch of golf carts at the bottom, remnants from a time when this was a place of leisure. At the bottom of the lake, we find a pipe that we sadly can't interact with, and surfacing, we find a sandbag wall bordering the great pipes that the NCR have built to convey water from Lake Mead to Vegas and the sharecropper farms. Continuing north, we make it back to Lake Mead. Here we find an unmarked campground with a campfire we could use and a ruined caravan. Inside the caravan, we find a skeleton and a bed we can sleep in, but not much else. Facing the lake, we can take care of a lake lurk. But we need to get to the northern side. So, swimming over a few little gaps, we arrive on the northern side, and here we find cazadors off in the distance. We can now follow the edge of the lake to the east. We see a location appear on our Pip-Boy off in the distance, but also enemies. Soon we see the outline of a shack, and eventually, more lake lurks. Creeping closer to the shack, we see that this is the Fisherman's Pride Shack. But before heading inside, let's check out these enemies to the east that the compass is picking up. Lake lurks. And more cazadors. You know what, I think I'm gonna leave them alone for now. Back at the shack, we find a short ruined dock, and around the western side, we find another campfire. Heading inside, we find a cozy little place. Signs of recent habitation, but no one here now. Going counterclockwise for now, we find two shelves, one with BBs and a BB gun, sunset sarsaparilla and scrap on another. Here we find a privacy screen next to a twin bed and an empty footlocker. On the nightstand next to the bed is a copy of Pugilism Illustrated. Incidentally, the containers in this shack are safe for storage. They don't respawn contents within them, so we could use this Fisherman's Shack as a player home if we want to. And since it's its own fast travel location, that makes it really convenient. Though we will find better options later. On the table, we can loot a bowl of squirrel stew, and in the refrigerator, we find quite a stash of foodstuffs. Finally, on the kitchen table, we find a toaster, a hot plate, and a bunch of sunset sarsaparilla bottle caps, one of which is a star bottle cap. As we're about to leave, we notice a poster on the ceiling above the bed. What is this? Oh, a girl in a short skirt. Okay. Not exactly salacious, but in a post-war apocalypse, hey, when needs must. And that's about it for the tiny Fisherman's Shack. Heading back outside, we can continue our exploration to the east. We see some sort of floating barge in the middle of the lake, but before we can explore it, we get attacked by more lake lurks.
I'm gonna six this bitch.
Now, what is this thing? Hopping in, we can swim on over, and oh no, it's infested with lake lurks. Readying our pistol, we see a ramp on the western edge of the barge that we can use to hop aboard. This is the Scavengers Platform, and it's made up of 4 platforms connected by little wooden bridges. We'll start by exploring the 4th platform, the southernmost one. If people once lived here, it's been abandoned for quite some time. The shelves and containers are all tipped over, and the mattresses are strewn about the place. Though we do find some ammo canisters, one behind a tipped-over shelf, a footlocker beneath a bunk bed, but that's it for platform 4. So moving to platform 3, there's a lot of scrap and junk, but facing northwest, we find a tipped over ammo canister, and on the same shelf next to it, 2 Sunset Sarsaparilla bottle caps, one of which is a star bottle cap. There's a box on the ground with minor loot, nothing sadly in the pot. Though facing northeast, we do find a campfire in a tire. So we've got beds, containers, and a campfire. And it's a fast travel location, which I suppose makes this suitable for a player home, if you don't mind sharing it with lake lurks. Moving to platform 2, we find a tipped over bookcase with a copy of the Wasteland Survival Guide. Wow. The Lone Wanderer's research and Moira's publication abilities have reached all the way out here to the west coast. We find a footlocker, but that's about it for platform number 2. So turning south, we can move to platform number 1. Here we find 2 more metal boxes on the ground, a wooden box with nothing but rusty tin cans inside, and an ammo canister hiding between a piece of scrap metal. Hopping in the water, we see that there's a lot of life under here. We'll have to explore underwater in a bit, but for now, we'll head back to the northern shore to continue exploring the perimeter of the lake first. And when we arrive, you know what, we might as well get rid of these doggone cazadors.
That how you want to play, huh? And then, let's start. That how you want to play, huh?
With the cazadors dead, we can turn our attention east. Here, we find Callville Bay. Now, we've been here before. We had to come here when doing the quest Volare for the Boomers. It was here where we used a detonator to raise the bomber to the surface. But we never had an opportunity to fully explore this bay, and so we'll take that opportunity now. But Callville Bay is overrun with more cazadors. All right, got them all before they could poison me. Up. Sneaky lake lurk. There's a train platform here, and we see the engines still on the tracks. Let's take a closer look at this thing. Wow. Ah, more cazadors. There we go, we can explore this engine in peace. And it's a beautiful train engine, still attached to a train car. Sadly, we can't hop in or explore the contents of this car. Moving towards where we killed all those cazadors, and the cazadors have really moved in. We see their nests all over the place, but we don't find much back here. Now, I thought I saw something off to the north, but it's getting dark. So before we head that way, let's explore this little shack. Just outside, we see a sign, Captain Dean Boats and Bait. Rentals, worms, and ice cream. It's an interesting combination. Hope they don't have worm-flavored ice cream. Heading inside, we see a bit of a shop. Oh. And rats. Great. Moving left for now, there's a lot of stuff that we can't interact with. Kaz finds another rat.
Got one. Time for some get even.
There are plates, utensils, tools, all sorts of stuff. Moving to the front counter, we find some hula girls that we can interact with. And look at this, more bottle caps. Oh no! And after looting one, all the others clipped downward below the surface of this counter. And annoyingly, one of them was a star bottle cap. We find more in the little cubby next to it. And again, they clipped below the surface, sadly leaving no way to loot the rest of them without resorting to console commands. Moving to the south, we find a pushboard that says boat rentals atop it, but we can't read any of the notes. And next to this is the cash register, and next to it is another star bottle cap. We are getting quite a collection. After looting some money in the cash register, we can loot a first aid box on the wall. And turning around, we can explore behind the counter. We don't see much back here except for a floor safe. It's locked and we don't find a key. But it's just an average lock. Inside, we find caps, some beverages, and some pre-war money. On our way out, we can loot some bobby pins on a shelf beneath a toy car, and I was hoping to find a bed here so we could rest for the night, but sadly we didn't find one, so we'll just wait until morning. When morning breaks, we can head outside. Now, let's head north up the road to see what these shacks were. At the end of the road, we see a big sign for Callville Bay, and the shacks we saw were part of the Bitter Springs recreational area, which we explored in my video on Bitter Springs. But now that we're up here, we see a location on our map to the west. As we approach, we find even more cazadors. As we crest a hill, we see that the location is another shack. And we see more cazadors off in the distance, but I'm going to try to avoid them. Creeping closer, we discover the Counterfeiting Shack. There are metal boxes outside, but they're all empty. So heading inside, we arrive in a tiny little shack with beautiful beams of sunlight piercing through the rusted holes in the tin roof. We'll start by going clockwise. We find 2 lockers to the southeast, one of which has some ammo inside. And then right next to this is a door. Okay, we'll go in there in a minute. Continuing along, we loot 2 ammo canisters. We find a varmint rifle on a shelf. Then on the western wall, we find another ammo canister and a toy box. Inside the toy box, we get more BBs for our BB gun. Next to this is a bed. Then next to this is an oven and a broken refrigerator. Nothing in the oven. Okay, now what is this door? Activating it teleports us to the other side of the door, which puts us out at the top of a staircase. Heading down the stairs, a basement with a whole bunch of bottles on a table. Here we find 3 soda machines. We can loot them of Nuka-Cola and Sunset Sarsaparilla. And on the table nearby, we find a bunch of unopened bottles of Nuka-Cola and Sunset Sarsaparilla and a stash of bottle caps, including 3 star bottle caps. Next to this is a table filled with opened bottles of soda, but we do find more bottle caps here, 2 Nuka-Cola and 1 Sunset. And then on the third table, we find a stash of counterfeit bottle caps. These are completely unique items. There are 18 on this table, and these are the only 18 counterfeit bottle caps in the entire game. However, the counterfeiting job must not be very good because we can't spend them. They appear as miscellaneous items in our inventory, and they have a value of 0, which means we can't sell them or trade them. These are really only useful for the New Vegas collector and completionist, which means I'm going to take them all. When done, we can move to the southwestern wing of this L-shaped basement. Here we find 3 crates of Sunset Sarsaparilla, each of which has unopened bottles inside. And then moving east, we find a bit of a cozy bedroom. In this room, there are 2 ammo canisters at the bottom of a shelf with a toolbox. We find 3 wooden boxes, but these are empty. Though next to it, we find a wall-mounted first aid kit with goodies inside. Then there's a gun case with 10mm pistols and ammunition inside. Next to this is a stack of suitcases, and on top of one is a copy of Tales of a Junktown Jerky Vendor. These were at the foot of a bed we can sleep in. And finally, next to a couch are 2 more boxes of Sunset Sarsaparilla. And that does it for the Counterfeiting Shack. Again, a possible location for a player home if you don't mind the cazadors. It has a functional bed, it's a fast travel location, and it's got plenty of containers, though no campfire. So there are better options out there. Well, we kind of walked far afield from Lake Mead to get to this location, so turning around and heading east, we can make our way back to the lake. We arrive back at Callville Bay. We see a big, twisted, ruined crane, deformed by gravity, wind, and time. There's a police car out here, and lying ruined in the water is a ship, but nothing inside of it. And that's about it for the perimeter of Lake Mead. Going any further east would bring us towards Camp Guardian, which we've already explored, and then to the Colorado, which is a boundary for the map. So that leaves exploring the lake bed. And to do so, we're gonna need the rebreather. We got the rebreather by completing the Volare quest for the boomers, and it comes in handy. Here in Callville Bay, we see there was another dock here, but it has crumbled into the lake, and we see the remains of a few broken boats, though no loot inside. And so we'll start by swimming south. We pass by a number of fishies and lots of vegetation. Off in the distance, we see a location appear on our Pip-Boy compass. we approach some rocks, and on top of the rocks is a rusting ship hull. Perhaps that's the location, but as we get close, oh, what is this? Lake Mead Cave. Oh dear, an underwater cave. On the other side, we see that there's a pocket of air directly above us. If we didn't have the rebreather, at least we could breathe here, but since we have the rebreather, we'll go ahead and dive deeper. We arrive in a deep chamber completely filled with water, and at the bottom, we find a bunch of sunset sarsaparilla crates. There are also shopping carts here. I honestly don't know how many soda shipping crates and shopping carts got in a cave at the bottom of Lake Mead. We find a skeleton here, so maybe he had something to do with it. We find a bit of a stash to the southeast, 2 first aid boxes, 3 middle boxes, 2 ammo canisters, and 2 filing cabinets. A tidy haul of ammunition. Nearby is another blackened skeleton. And here we see, another path going deeper. Alright. Sure, let's dive deeper into a submerged cave. What can go wrong? At the end of this path, we arrive at another huge chamber. What could be lurking here? Hope none of you have thalassophobia. There are a few holes in the roof, leaking sunlight into the chamber, but we can't escape through any of them. It's easy to get turned around. Let's see. Okay, there's where I came in, so I need to go that way. Strangely enough, as we explore further, we find a lot of automobile parts, ruined car doors, to be specific. How in the world did these get here? I mean, I could understand if we were finding these on the lake bottom. Sure, maybe a barge sank or someone drove their car into a lake. But these are car parts at the bottom of an underground cave. And it's not even the closest chamber to the entrance. It's 2 chambers deep. How did these car parts get here? I mean, these are the doors to what? Half a dozen different cars? It's just really weird. Continuing south, however, we find signs of foul play. Poker chips littering the cave floor. There's an ammo canister here and 3 suitcases filled with pre-war money, and amongst them, a dismembered skeleton. Maybe this guy won it big at Vegas and was towing 6 cars on his way back home, where he accidentally drove into the lake and his car fell into this cave? I don't know. Hard to explain. But we do find a copy of Lad's Life on the ground here. Sadly, we can't loot any of the poker chips. Well, this second chamber is a dead end. There is no way out but to go back the way we came. But everything is looking the same. I had to swim around for quite a while, feeling just a tad bit anxious, until I finally found the tunnel out. Swimming through the tunnel, we could return to Chamber 1, and we see a way out at the top. Is that it? Oh, no, we can't even surface there. How do we get out of this place? Okay, moving northwest into Chamber 3? What? Is this the same chamber? I'm confused now. Let's just go north. We see an air bubble over there. Ah, Eddie. Oh, good. He stayed by the entrance. Finally, we found our exit out of this terrifying cave. Back in the lake, we can swim up to explore this rusted ship that we saw, and strangely enough, we find gore bags on the lake bed next to the ship. This is so odd. They couldn't have gone down with the ship. The ship is 200 years old at least. It's rusting. These bags are filled with body parts that would have rotted long ago. No, super mutants must have tossed these into the middle of the lake, I guess. Not sure why. We don't find anything in the rusted wreck, but we can hop on top of it. Breath of fresh air. Feels good to be out of there. Checking our map, we see an outlet to the south that's blocked by Hoover Dam. The map border is to the east. Well, let's swim west past the Scavenger Platform to see if there was anything underwater that we missed. It's a lovely little swim, lots of plants and fishes. We eventually pass by the floating Scavenger Platform above us. I saw something on the ground, but it ended up just being a refuse pile. Though finally, on the western edge of the lake, we find a sunken truck. Let's see, what is this? Oh, it's a Sunset Sarsaparilla delivery truck. Holy cow, look at all of these Sunset Sarsaparilla crates. And bottle caps. Oh no, am I gonna have to loot dozens of bottle caps on the seafloor? Oh, look at that. A star bottle cap. We can now cherry pick the bottle caps carefully so as not to loot all of the empty bottles. After doing so, I ended up walking away with 3 Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle caps. To get them all, we kind of have to push these crates out of the way, just to make sure we're not missing any. After looting everything outside, we can head inside the truck. We walk away with a bit of Sunset Sarsaparilla from some of the crates, but even after pushing all of the crates outside the truck, we don't find any more caps in here. And finally, we can surface to the southwest. And that is every marked location that we haven't explored in previous videos in and around Lake Mead. Now we can head west to try and find a road so we can return to civilization. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll be publishing shorter content this week as I prepare for a business trip. When I get back, I'll have a lot of exciting things to share. So if you don't want to miss it, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a brand new shirt in the shop. That's right, it's our favorite villain with his own theme song from Fallout 3, Eulogy Jones. The design comes on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. It also comes on other products like smartphone cases, pillows, mugs, posters, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. I'm becoming more active on Twitter. I use Twitter to respond to viewers and to make channel announcements, like if I need to go out of town for a special reason for a few days. So if you're active on Twitter, I encourage you to follow me at Oxhorn. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.